to show you today is called HiQA, for anybody that's not familiar. They're based out of New Jersey. They've got a great team. There's approximately 50 people that work for HiQA. But the core of the team are engineers that understand the process, which for me is like myself, which is important. So it's making sure that, when we deliver a solution, we understand the pains that you go through. So what I'm going to do is just, like I say, in a second, just pass it over to Chris so you can see on screen as well. It will walk you through. We're not just going to kill you with death by PowerPoint. We're going to actually go into the system as well. But like I say, any questions, feel free to put them in the chat. We're going to allow 10 minutes at the end just to go through those. But yeah, as Sempra, what we're passionate about is understanding what your problems are and delivering a solution that's, tailored for that and everything else that you do, not just that solution. So hopefully, like I say, you'll get a lot of mileage from this presentation. Yeah, any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat. So over to you then, Chris. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Russ. Appreciate it. Hey, everyone, welcome. So my name is Chris Mendocino. I'm the VP of Product at HiQA. And like Russ said, we are a manufacturing quality company, and we focus primarily on delivering quality software solutions for manufacturing companies of all sizes. So we work with everyone from 20-person mom and pop shops all the way up through 20,000 people in multinational conglomerate corporations. So today, what we're going to focus on is how to deal with the documentation portion of your quality process. So just for a little bit of background, for those of you that aren't familiar with our system at all, we started off as a ballooning software that could, we were the first company that I'm aware of with the amount of research we've tried to put into it, trying to figure out if anybody else had this, but I believe we were the first one to have an automatic ballooning of 2D drawings on a PDF. And so being able to take a 2D drawing, import it, and just click a button and have it automatically recognize all the features and extract everything into a table. So you're able to digitize the requirements of a drawing. We started off there, but we knew the vision of where we wanted to go. We wanted to connect buyers and suppliers ultimately, and also have tools to better manage quality and manufacturing internally. So we touch everything from that initial ballooning, all of the inspection planning at an extremely comprehensive level, down to data collection on the shop floor, as well as in QC, final inspection, shipping, receiving, all of that, all the different forms of inspection and data collection. We connect with CMMs and vision systems. We have a gauge management suite built right into the product that's fully integrated. NCRs, corrective actions, all of those, as well as handling all of these submission requirements that you collect at the end of the day, which is basically, at the end of the day, kind of the end result, the purpose of what you're trying to do. You need some reports at the end to be able to share with your customer and give proof of quality of goods. Okay, so that's kind of the range of what we touched. I don't think I missed. I didn't say anything about SPC, but yeah, we do SPC too. Okay, so that's kind of the rough range of what we touch. And today we're going to focus on how we deal with submission requirements, and more importantly, how you can use a platform like ours to transform your quality from whatever stage you might be in. Some of you guys might be still using, pencil and paper or pen and paper, whichever, to record your inspection results. Some of you guys might be using Excel. Some of you guys might be using some other product that's like, a mixture between software automation and Excel. Whatever stage you're at, we're going to kind of walk through the different stages of evolution that our customers have gone through in adopting a technology like ours. Okay, so let's first go over some key objectives of what we're trying to accomplish with a tool like this from a transformation perspective, right? So we want to achieve coherent planning. Okay. What I mean by that is we want to start something we noticed a few years ago is that there seems to be in the manufacturing industry, maybe not in your company in particular, the other company down the street, who knows? But there seems to be this disconnect between quality and manufacturing a lot of times. And so what we're trying to do is bring that together where quality engineers and manufacturing engineers are planning together, right? And so there needs to be clear requirements at the beginning of the process for what needs to be inspected at which operation, how frequently are things happening, what kind of inspection tool am I using, and also at the end of the process, what kind of documents do I need in place? What was agreed to with my customer? So all of that need in our system is able to get planned right up front in the process collaboratively between quality and manufacturing. We obviously want to save time, right? Generating those documents. So we're going to talk about how you're able to templatize your business standards and set up automation rules to be able to handle a lot of this stuff. So you're not having to think about every detail at every single job that you're creating. Okay. Time savings on reviewing and signing submission documents is another aspect we want to talk about. So how many times do you find yourself kind of running around trying to find, what documents do we need for this job? Who needs to review this? Who needs to sign off on it? Did we fill everything up correctly? So a lot of that gets handled through this process that we're going to talk about here. Eliminate having to search for documents and data. I kind of already hit on that with what I just said. Transparency. So always knowing the status of any order's submission package, right? So and you can see a little hint of it here, and we're going to get into that in the software, but by having a cohesive checklist of what's required for any given job is essential. And having some transparency in the system where any of the engineers or any of the people who need to check in on something can just immediately go and check and see what's required, what documents did we generate already, who's been working on them, whose responsibility are they. All of that stuff is what we want to get through today. Traceability, knowing who did what when. And that brings us into our 5-step process that we want to talk about. So the transformation process that companies typically go through is in these steps. It can differ here and there, but this is generally how it breaks down. First, we want to digitize our data and our content. Then we want to centralize it, organize it into a centralized database, templatize, connect, and automate. I ran out of IZE words, and so we end up with connect and automate at the end. It has to make sense, right? So let's go through each of these steps and just try to understand what's involved. And then we're going to get into the product and see how we actually address each of these steps and what that end result looks like. Okay. So first of all, digitizing. So this is something we found is that in the manufacturing industry, most people understand that you need an ERP software. You need a CAD system. You need a CAM system, right? There's all these digital software platforms that you guys use or that manufacturing companies use. But for some reason, quality tends to kind of take a back seat and, let's be serious. At the end of the day, it'd be nice if we didn't even need to do quality, if all the parts just came out perfect, right? So it's kind of a thing that we don't want to really look at or talk about. But having a digital solution for quality can really help streamline the business overall. So basically getting away from paper, having content and inspection results and requirements all digitized in a digital format, right? The next aspect, though, is centralizing that data. It's not enough just to make it digital. So maybe you've made the move to Excel or something. Technically, that's digital. So maybe you're filling out Excel inspection forms, but is it really centralized? So what we mean by that, our system is a database-driven solution. So we're not just managing, Excel and Word files and part files somewhere on a database. We're actually working in a SQL database backend that lets us do some really cool things at scale, which means that you're able to define processes centrally, define all of your inspection requirements centrally, organize all of your quality similarly to how you would organize, your orders and such in an ERP system, or your inventory in an ERP system, right? Quality has a lot of similar needs. Okay. So just for those of you that are submitting questions, we're gonna have a Q&A section at the end. Feel free to fill up the chat now if you've got questions. If you don't want to forget what you're gonna ask, fill up the chat. But I'm personally going to ignore it for the time being, and then we'll get to it at the end of the session with 10-15 minutes at the end that we'll leave for questions. Okay. All right. So yeah, important to get that data centralized so that we can actually make use of it and start to organize our processes. Okay. So one of the things that we're doing is connecting those pieces. I kind of laid this out in the beginning of all the different areas that we touch. It's because the ballooning that you do, the initial inspection planning, it all sources from a drawing, right? And we want our inspection results connected to that source. We want gauging for traceability of what gauges we use connected to that source. We want all of our PPAP documentation, SPC analytics, all of it's connected to and interrelated to each other. And we can do that through having a centralized database this way, right? Okay. The next step is templatizing. So once you've digitized your content, you've centralized it, it's all organized in one place, then we want to start templatizing things. This is where we start to be able to develop some standards for the organization, right? For your organizations, you're able to actually say, this is how we do things as a company. These are the requirements that our customers have of us, and we bake those standards into one centralized application. And we do that through templating. So you'll see, and I'll get into this when we get into the product, you'll see how we not only templatize things like documents, that's important and somewhat obvious for a lot of systems. Reports and documents and such are templatized, but we also have templatized things like workflows. So how configurable workflows that can be templatized. So that way you can say, what is our flow for handling an FAI versus an FMEA versus a whatever document it is, right? We can have designated workflows for those documents that control the life cycle, whose responsibility it is, how many signatures we need on the document, etc. We even go as far as templatizing all of the settings and preferences that you would have for your parts. So let's say you have, it could be by customer. Maybe certain customers have certain preferences about like balloon shapes, AQL rules, things like that. And even document requirements. So, and you might also want to break it up, maybe not by customer, but maybe by like part type. So maybe when you have a machined part versus a casting versus like a part that you purchase from a supplier, or maybe it's plastic injection parts. Maybe you handle those different types of parts differently, and you can configure and templatize your settings accordingly. So that way you're not having to reinvent the wheel. Every time you pull up a new part, you don't have to define a whole bunch of settings and controls. You can actually set all that stuff at a system level via a system admin who's managing your company's sort of standards and requirements. Okay. So that's a really important step that we want to get to. All right. So just recapping those first three: digitize, centralize, and templatize. Getting all of your customer submission requirements in one place, right? We're templatizing the conditions when various submission requirements should be applied, okay? And templatizing your business logic for document life cycles through dynamic workflows, okay? All right, the next step here is we want to connect, right? So once we've got digital content centrally organized and we've got templatized standards for our organization, now we need to start plugging all of the players into this so that they can actually connect, collaborate, and get the work done, right? So we're connecting people, right? Connecting your teams through dynamic workflows. So having user assignments, notifications, permissions about who's able to do what thing, right? And we're also connecting submission standards and documentation logic to the inspection plan and data collection, right? So we want to eliminate any kind of redundancy of data entry, okay? So by having one system where, yeah, we have some modules and stuff and what you can kind of use as like add-ons, but it's all native application that we've built from the ground up. So we didn't like some companies, like you'll see ERP systems that have a whole bunch of different options and stuff that you can combine all together. But a lot of those were built through acquisitions where they bought a quality system, or they bought a gauge system, or they bought a whatever to kind of tack onto their software. We didn't do that. We built everything from the ground up. Everything is all deeply integrated. It is truly one platform. Okay. So that gives us the ability to apply significant amounts of automation and very deep integration between these different record types and objects within our application. All right, everything in one place, adding transparency. The other aspect of connection is connecting you with your suppliers. So I'm not going to hit too heavily on this one. For today, we have other webinars that we do talking about the buyer-supplier experience at length. But just to hint at a concept here, that buyers, what you're able to do with our platform is actually collaborate directly with your suppliers through an exchange platform that we have set up. So you can have your system locally as a buyer, where you're managing your internal quality and such, and you can push those same digitized, centralized, and templatized standards down and requirements down to your suppliers, okay? So that they're able to work off of a cohesive plan, a very clear set of standards and requirements that you're submitting down to them, and they report or input their inspection results and fill up documents in the exact same way that you're used to seeing them in your organization. So that way, everything's very homogeneous for how you work, whether it's you're working on internal content or external content. So that's a whole concept that we've been able to build a massive platform around to be able to help you guys connect more seamlessly with your suppliers and collaborate with them in real time. Okay. All right, and lastly, we want to automate, right? We've done all the previous steps, and now we want to actually automate this so that we're able to scale up. So what do we mean by that? There's a couple of key concepts here, nothing crazy fancy here, but we want auto generation of submission packages based on your business logic. So that gets into the templatization of some of the settings and preferences that we were talking about before, where every time that we create a job, let's say we define a part. I'm going to show you this in the software in just a minute, but let's understand the concept before we get in too deep. So let's say you have a part and you've defined, okay, this is how I manufacture this part. This is how I inspect this part. These are all the requirements for submissions on this part. For this is what an FAI looks like. I need some SPC data collected. I need an FMEA. I need whatever it is. You define all of that. Then every time that you create a new order for that, so now you might be a shop that just does single orders. That's fine. You can still have automation around like how those requirements get pulled in. But if you're doing a lot of repeat business, think about the amount of time and effort that you put into every single time you have that job pop up. You have to rethink, what did we do last time? Let's go look and let's make sure all those settings are still in here. Well, we're actually just repeating the same jobs, the same requirements in our system. And when you do that, it automatically launches the documents, the inspection plans, the samples, and assigns all of the users to the documents that they're responsible for so that their personal task queues get populated and driven. Right, so that they're able to see, oh, cool, I have this new FAI I'm responsible for drafting or reviewing and approving or signing or whatever it is, right? So there's a lot of automation that we can put in place around that. And then the other piece to really start scaling some of this up is integrating with your ERP system. And we have a robust, actually, things have changed since the last time I did this webinar back a few months ago, because traditionally we have a full-fledged RESTful API. If RESTful doesn't mean anything to you, that tell your IT person that we have a RESTful API, they'll know what that means. But we have a RESTful API that allows us to connect with basically any kind of ERP system that's out there. In addition to that, something that's changed since the last time we did this webinar a few months ago is we have a new product suite called HQA Connect. Okay, so that is a whole library of off-the-shelf standard connectors for a variety of ERP systems. So we have a few that we've started with. I forget exactly which platforms those are, so I don't want to say for sure in case I mess that up. But you can reach out to Sempra, and they can get you the list of what we have today. But even if we don't have a productized connector already ready to go, if you let us know the ERP system, we have a whole bunch that are in queue. We're going to be very rapidly growing that library over the course of the next year. And there's a pretty good chance that we'll be getting to yours within that time frame. Okay. So what that lets us do, though, it lets us connect that way. When you have new part records, new jobs that you're creating in your ERP system, those can automatically launch in HighQA. So you are actually using HighQA as this robust engine in the background that's being triggered and queued by your ERP system and assigning tasks to people for documents that they need to fill out and samples that they need to inspect and so on. Okay, so that's the type of automation that we're talking about here. Here, we'll go back. All right, let's switch over quickly to some live demonstration. We'll walk through a few of these things so you get a brief look and feel for what this is like. All right, so this is the application. So there's two aspects of the application here. There is, let's see if we can, and we'll leave it there. So there's this side of it. This is kind of the flagship side, if you will, or the engineering side, where I can do all of my inspection planning, set up all my requirements. This is my control center, right? Then there's data collection applications for the shop floor that are a bit more lightweight, focused on get me to my inspection plan that I'm supposed to be working on, and tell me what I'm supposed to be inspecting. Let me just enter my inspection results, and then I'm off and running. Okay. So those are the two sides. We're not going to focus on the data entry portion of today. We're going to focus on kind of the planning side and how we're able to kind of set things up for success here. Okay. But let's just go through so we have our bearings, because I know there's a lot of people on the call that haven't necessarily seen this system before. So first off, we're inside of a part record. And we're actually inside of a particular job instance of a part right now. And we can see that down towards the bottom here. I can see which part and which job I'm currently working on. And I might have multiple jobs for that part. Okay, so I can kind of bounce between them. They're all independently controlled. There's independent inspection requirements for each of those jobs. Okay. And that's just because you might be, you might, as you repeat a job over time, you might learn and say, oh, okay, well, we want to increase the sampling rate for a particular feature or decrease, or we might want to change our inspection method, like our gauge category. That's all able to be controlled and managed through a system like this. And that's the benefit of actually digitizing and centralizing that data here, right? Is we're able to keep one record, one system of truth. Like if I go to my open repository, you'll see I have a whole library of every part and job that I've am working on. So this is very much almost like an ERP system, but for quality, where if you want to go look up a particular order, you just search for a job number or a part number or whatever, and that comes right up here in the system. Okay. Same concept. There's one record for each of these, and we're able to kind of find it all in one place. So along the top here, I've got these tabs where I can see, okay, this is my drawing where I'm doing my planning and such, and I've got an interactive, I've got a balloon drawing here. I can click on a feature and it pulls it up down here in the list. This is all nicely connected for a seamless user experience here. Okay, my DIM editor where I can control all the aspects and characteristics of this dimension. Okay, the attributes, that's the word I was looking for, the attributes of this dimension. Okay, things like AQL, SPC, I can control all of this and what my requirements are for this particular inspection requirement. Okay, so this I'm trying to figure out like how much we want to go into this for background, but there is an auto ballooning that happened here to capture all of this that was done up here. Okay, so I'm kind of skipping over a little bit of that. We do lots of webinars on how our auto ballooning works, so definitely check some of those out on YouTube, or look out for the next one that we end up hosting here. Okay, but this is automatically captured in a few seconds and populated down here below, just so you understand how that was driven. The other piece of this is the manufacturing operations, and I'm going to show you why this is one of the most important things that we do. Is most manufacturers, now there's a lot of manufacturers that do like turnkey solutions, very minimal operation steps, but most manufacturers have some sort of series of operation steps where there's specific inspection requirements at each one of those phases. This is by far the easiest way to track and build all of those inspection requirements per operation. Okay, so all it is just grab a few dimensions that you want to inspect at an operation, and you click Add Operation, and it adds that to your list here. Okay, and you can see each operation. I can see the number of DIMs that are being checked at each one. Okay, all right. And so what we do when we do that is we open this up, and it actually builds for you a balloon drawing that represents the inspection requirements at that stage of the operation. Okay, and you can see my table is now filtered out here. It's showing just those inspection requirements. And these are a couple of just random notes that I added because maybe at a particular inspection or at a particular operation, you have like kind of custom requirements that weren't part of the customer drawing or something. So you can actually just generate those down here. I just right click, say add, and I added in two different kind of notes and just drag them up onto the drawing. And now you've got new requirements that you've custom generated onto your drawing. Okay, so just some cool tools just so you understand some of the background of what we're doing here for building inspection requirements. But the reason I bring all this up is because today we're talking about submission requirements and documentation and all that stuff, but it's important to understand how that's connected to the overall beast here of inspection planning, right? So all of this work that we're doing in the planning stage is a collaboration effort between quality engineering, manufacturing engineering, working together to build these inspection requirements in this plan. Okay. Jump forward a little bit here. Now that I've built out all of my operation steps, I can now go over to what we call PQP records. So this is production quality planning. This side is saying, okay, I did all of my inspection planning. I built out my operation steps, my routing, et cetera. And now I want to take this into the document control side of things. I want to build out a checklist of what's required from a documentation standpoint for this job. And then these are the actual documents that I'm hovering over now. These are the actual documents that I've generated against those requirements. So this is where we get into, I don't want to have to build this list manually every single time I make a job, right? So we have what we call indexes. So this is referred to as an index, okay? So I can click Change Index. You can see I've got a few in my system here that I can see where some indexes have a design record, P-flow, FMEA, control plan, gauge R&R, etc. So that's one checklist. Or I might say I only need an FAI, right? So that's my balloon drawing and first article inspection report. Okay, so these are just different checklist templates that we have in our system to work with. Now, those are able to be, there's some out of the box ones that I was just showing you there. That's what just comes default with the system. But typically in onboarding new customers with a system like this, we go through kind of a discovery phase of that implementation process where we work with you to determine, okay, what are your kind of submission requirements? What kind of documents do you need to generate? Let's build some checklists for different scenarios, like different customer requirements, or what is the first time you get a new part, what does that look like? Like you need an FAI, you need to do like a full PPAP, or you need to do whatever. And then on a repeat order, the next time you get an order, what does that look like? Okay, so we would have two different indexes for those different scenarios. And that would all be templatized at a system level. Okay, so let me show you what I mean. Let's just pop out to the system level real quick here. We'll go up to settings, and we're going to go to our component library. So we're playing system administrator now, where we're saying, okay, what do I have in my system? I have all these kind of dynamic reports and such. These are all my report templates. And then here are my indexes. This is what we were just looking at, right? So these would be the different indexes, and you can import these. We have designers for all of these designer tools. So we can build custom indexes that meet your needs. We can also build custom reports. All right, so we have a whole library. This is all the library of like out of the box reports that you get that come with the system. Okay. And then there's also custom workflows that can be generated as well. So we'll get into workflows in a minute, but where's my, oh, am I missing one? I wonder if it's moved over somewhere. That's the one I like to use too. I'm missing the one I like. Oh, well, I'll have to make do without it. But anyway, so there's workflows that control the life cycle of these documents. So every time that you generate a document, you choose a workflow that you want to associate with it and can control it through. And then that document goes through like a draft signature stage. If it's rejected, it goes back to reject, or if it's signed, that it's finished, it's completed. So this is controlling the life cycle of the documents. Okay. All right, so just so you understand, we're at a system level. This is my library of what we call components. They're basically just all widgets that get that work together to control your entire submission package and documentation process. Okay. All right, let's go back to our parts. So now we're back to an individual part record. We're at a job, and we're looking at the submission requirements for that job. Okay, so we brought in one of these checklists. Now, that checklist was brought in because of the profile of the part that we defined when we set this part up. Okay, I'll get back to that in a couple of minutes here. But just so you're aware of how that worked, actually, we're running, yeah, we got about 10 minutes. Okay, so once this gets loaded, then these documents, let me just show you how these work. When we talk about document management, we're not just talking about export a PDF or export an Excel and then, go manage it on your own. We're actually, we built a whole system from the ground up to be able to manage your documents natively inside of the product. So you can see this, the way this is laid out. So there's a lot of fields that were populated through the database when I just ran this report. But these yellow fields, these are interactive fields that are dynamic. So I can type into these fields. I might have checkboxes like this that I can check. I might have date fields. I have signature fields here. I have all kinds of stuff here that I can interact with directly. So think about something like DocuSign, where I can go in directly, fill up a form, and work with it. I can sign it, and I'm working collaboratively as part of a workflow, right, with my other my fellow employees to get a job done. And that's because this document here is controlled by a workflow that's attached to it. So you can see this workflow here. This is a 2-signature step workflow. Okay, so that goes from draft to reviewed, signed by one user, and then reviewed and approved and signed by a second user. Okay, so this is managing the access to the document. Typically, I would walk through this, but we're running a little short on time. There's a few things I just want to hit on here. But when I come up here and I hit submit, this would turn kind of gray. The yellow fields would go away, and it opens up these signature slots. Okay, and it's going to send a notification up to the user and say, hey, you've got a new document that's waiting for you. Apparently, I don't pay attention to my notifications or clear them out, but here we are. Okay, so those are part of the collaboration pieces. You also have email notifications and such that you can get queued by to say, hey, there's a document waiting for you to be signed, and that leads into personal task queues as well. Okay, but these are some of the mechanics around what we're doing. So eventually these documents get finalized so that, remember we talked about any job that you want to pull up and see the status of all the documents and such in it. So at any time I can pull up this job and I can see, oh, these are the documents I'm supposed to be submitting. Oh, they're all in draft. Well, we're not nearly ready to ship then, right? And so I can go in and I can review, see who's responsible for each one. and we can advance these, make sure they're digitally signed, make sure they're finalized and completed, and that they are ready for delivery, right? And ultimately, at the end of the day, we can take those and do what's called a final package, build a final package that merges all of these documents into one aggregated PDF. Okay, so I've got a couple examples of those down here. These are partials. Oop, let's go back. Not that one. That's boring. Let's see if we got a better one. Oh, these ones are all boring. They were just design records. I thought I had a better part than that. Oh, I know what I did. I messed something up when I was preparing for this. My bad. But anyway, let me just show you kind of, and just imagine with me for a second here. Apologies. But you would have all the documents that were merged in together would be listed here, and you would have one package like so. Oh, so it actually retained the PDF version of it, even though it got rid of the lines, because I cleared out a bunch of documents, put some new ones in when I was preparing for the demo here. Apologies. But you can see how it merged in the FMEA here, along with the balloon drawing and kind of what's called the manufacturing program review. That's another template that we have. But this is an example of a type of package that you would be able to submit to your customer at the end of your process there. Okay. And you can even directly email it right out of the system. So that way you're not downloading PDFs and having to store them elsewhere. This system could actually handle all of the document management and control and lifecycle and storage through the entire process. Okay. Cool. And when you do email out documents like that from our system, there's a little icon here that says, hey, this one was emailed out of the system. And you can click on it and see, oh, it was sent by so-and-so, and it was sent to a particular recipient here, right? So we have all that traceability of who did what when within the system. And you also have workflow histories. I kind of breezed over that, but that's all in the system as well. Okay. Throwing a lot of information at you. We're recording the webinar. You can go back, you can listen to it again. Part of this is just to get you to help you guys understand how, like, what the different aspects of this are, how comprehensive it is, and what's being handled. And it looks like there's a lot of questions in the chat as well, so we'll get to that in a couple of minutes here. The last thing I wanted to show is just some of the automation and scalability pieces here. So we talked about settings, templates, and how that works. So we do that through a tool called part categories. So again, I'm up at the system level. I'm playing system administrator right now, and I'm saying, oh, okay, well, I want to build a set of a settings template for customer A, customer B, customer whatever, or by different part types, something like that. Okay. So you can see the types of settings that we're able to define here. I might have settings for like where this part gets manufactured, the type of decimal tables or tolerance tables we want to use, some different behaviors about how the balloons work and how the balloon numbering happens, right? I might have differences in how we want to handle tolerance behaviors, dimension settings like my SQL or target CPK values, things like that. AQL settings for sampling rules, what kind of AQL tables we want to reference per different customer or different part type or so on. Okay. And then also the PQP settings. So this one apparently didn't have anything, but that's okay. We could say, well, this is my index that I want to use. So that's the checklist of documents that's going to be required when I run this. What type of standard workflow do I want to use? What type of documents do I want to pull in? Because you might have a checklist that's FAI and lot inspection report, but then some customers might have different templates for different FAI templates or different lot inspection templates, different FMEA templates, et cetera. So you would say which specific report templates you're pulling in on this particular part category as a profile. Okay, so let me back up just a second in case some of you are looking at this and you're going, yeah, I have all the power in the world, but that looks like a lot of work. Just keep in mind, this is something that when you're onboarding with us and you're implementing these, we have all kinds of documented best practices. We have online education platforms for digital knowledge base. that where you can kind of self-learn whatever you need to. We have an online academy that actually guides you through all the different aspects of our product and what you need to know to get this implemented successfully in your organization. And we also do a lot of in-person coaching and such as well during the implementation of a system like this. All right, so just so you understand that it's not something where, you know, we hope that you just buy it and then we say bye. And you know, we're there for your success long term. Okay, so all of these templates, though, when we're looking at them, all this rolls up to say when I create a new part. I'll just hint at this quickly. When I create a new part and I say new, I would go and I'd pick a drawing, and I'll say, let me just grab a demo drawing real quick. That one, it's fine. I'd pick a drawing that I want to work with, and then I'd say, okay, what part category does this part fall into? I'm making this part for customer whoever. All right, cool. Now that's all I have to do. And then all those settings that we talked about get dumped into this part. Okay, so it's a little bit of setup, a little bit of upfront work, but then it's super simple for an end user on a day-to-day basis to accomplish their tasks and what they need to do. Okay, again, all this inspection planning that we're doing and such, a little bit of upfront work, but once we get to repeat jobs and such, every time I want to make a new order for this, I right click and I say, I want to repeat this job. When I do a repeat, it's going to clone all of my settings, all of my preferences, all the operations, all the inspection requirements, and all of the documents get regenerated, restarted in a draft format, reset the workflows. You know, they're all blank documents again, but I get to say, yes, redo this whole thing. Boom. We like the way we did it last time. Let's do that again. Right. So I'm not having to make those decisions over and over again. And again, connect this up to your ERP system. I don't even have to right click anymore. I don't even have to do any of this. The ERP, when you go and create your new jobs, triggers those jobs in our system as well and can prompt all of these settings and controls. Okay, cool. So I think we're short on time. Let's shift over to questions because I saw a lot that were popping up, but hopefully this gives you a good introduction and overview to understand some of the breadth of what we're accomplishing here. Okay. Let's go here. All right, Q&A.
Thanks as well, guys. Thanks as well, guys, for all the questions. Yeah, I appreciate that, Chris. That was very useful and informative. I hope everybody agrees. But yeah, so let's just go through some of the questions, and we can take any of these offline as well. But if you want to skip through a few, Chris, there's quite a few easy ones in there. That's quite a simple answer as a yes, so we can do that. But if we want to just skip through those, and any we can take offline.
Yeah. Okay. So one of the questions here was, can you analyze data between suppliers across the same parts being manufactured at each site? Okay. That's a super cool concept. There's a few things. The short answer is yes. That's a thing that's so that's a thing that's coming later this year. It's in the next version of the product that's coming out later this year. There's some ways to do that now because we technically have the data in our system. We have customers that do that through like Power BI. They'll extract the data from our system and they'll do their own kind of report analysis and such. We can also build custom reports that allow you to do that. We don't have any of those reports out of the box in the current day system. But because that was such a popular request, that's kind of built into the next iteration of the product coming out later this year. So just so you understand kind of the full picture there. But
fantastic.
One thing real quick on that, maybe I'm having a lengthy answer here, but one thing quick on that is what I hinted at, the supplier hub product that we have that lets you exchange data seamlessly with your suppliers. So that one of the cool things you can do with that is if you're doing the ballooning and the inspection planning up front, you send that down to the multiple suppliers all working on the same part. Now you can actually do that cross examination between them and say, oh, on this feature, how did everybody perform? Because they all have the same balloon numbers. So something to think about with that. All right, let's see another one. Can the ballooning system identify custom indicators against dimensions such as an asterisk or other symbols? Short answer on that one is no, but there's some technical reasons why. So like I'm assuming you're talking about like for criticality of a feature or something like that. The problem there is that everybody's got their own their own standard and their own language on how they do that. There's not really any industry standards around that. Our OCR technology is built around industry standards for GD&T language. Okay, so if there's not a standard around it, it's very hard to build OCR technology to just recognize stuff and kind of program on the fly. That's just a very, very technologically challenging thing to do. So, yeah, I guess
It doesn't mean that you can't indicate them as key characteristics, though. So you can still indicate those features as key characteristics to filter the drawings to these stage drawings, etc. But yeah, okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Like you can apply designators to say which features are critical. It's just a question of like, is our OCR going to do that? No, but you can get all of that inspection planning in depth done. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Forms customizable for FAI. Okay, so are the templates / forms customizable for FAI and or PPAP? Yes, so our system is extremely flexible in the types of reports that we can output and the types of report templates we can design and format. So typically in the onboarding process, I think I mentioned this at one point, is we kind of step through a discovery phase with you where we look at all of your existing reports. Now, sometimes it makes sense to build a template in our system that exactly matches your existing reports. Other times, you look at the report and you're like, yeah, this is what we had today because it was good enough to get by. It's what we could do with the tools we had. Maybe there's a better way to do it inside of a high QA in a digital connected environment like this. So we kind of go through all that with you. We've done, I think we're up over like 1,400 customers now at this point of all different sizes. So we've developed a lot of best practices, and there's kind of a coaching element to our implementations that we do. So there's a lot of stuff that we can kind of guide you through on that for best practices if we've seen particular versions of report templates that we think might be beneficial to you guys.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Is it important to is it possible to approve supplier PPAP documents digitally? And can we suggest corrections through HighQA? Yes, so that's that supplier hub product coming out a little bit later this year. Again, digitally connecting you with your suppliers. So we looked at the workflows for those documents, the workflow that takes the document through the different stages. The architecture that we built is such that those workflows, you can assign workflow steps to people inside your organization as well as outside your organization, like your suppliers. Okay, so that's a huge concept that we've been prepping for the last couple of years, and that opportunity is coming out later this year with our supplier hub. We're happy to do any kind of demos and discussions with you. It is in a working phase. We have customers that have actually already bought the solution, and they're just waiting for the launch in the next few months here. Okay. We're doing a lot of planning and prep work with them, though, to get ready for that as well. So that's kind of just a little bit of insight into the staging that we're at with that product.
Okay.
But yeah, that's the intention with it, to be able to seamlessly and dynamically collaborate with your suppliers, to have traceability over all the documents of who's supposed to be signing it. Was it signed and accepted, or was it rejected? What's the reason for the reject? What are the change, like having engineering change orders and requests to manage the change of different inspection plans and requirements. All of that is in that next iteration of the system. Okay. Next question. Can we generate a KPIs report about the progress of each process related to APQP project phase? All right, I'm gonna read a little between the lines on how that was phrased, try to understand what you're getting at. But I think what you're getting at is, can we track life cycle phases, or can we do phase gating basically for APQP projects? So that's something that we could talk about. I'd say we don't have like a dedicated product per se for handling like phase gating APQP today, if that's what you're getting at. That is something that is in our roadmap over the next year or two. But phase gating for APQP is a thing that we can handle a huge percentage of today through PPAP management. which is kind of like your phase 3, 4, and 5 of APQP. Okay, so there's a lot more nuance and detail to an answer for a question like that, but I'd say talk with our teams, get a demo set up, and we can get more in depth with how we manage, you know, a large percentage of what's going on there with APQP.
So yeah, if we can reach out to you after that, but yeah, great question. Thank you.
Yeah. What are the deployment options for the software? Can it be deployed as an on-premises solution? Yes. So right now, our solution is an on-prem solution. The next iteration coming out later this year, we're launching 2 new versions of it simultaneously. Sorry, not simultaneously, in quick succession to each other. Where you'll still have an on-prem offering. We're actually converting into a web-based product. So it'll be browser-based on-prem. And then there's also a cloud variation that we'll be offering as well towards the end of this year. So that way customers will be able to choose. Okay, if you get in, like, I would say if you want cloud, you don't necessarily have to wait for cloud. You can sign up with the current on-prem solution, get started, start building a lot of your processes, working with learning how the tool works and implementing it, and then just migrate to the cloud if you want to do that when it's available. So there's a lot of options for how to onboard a system like this. Just reach out to us and we can walk you through it.
Absolutely.
When we submit documents to our customers, is it possible to have our logo on the documents? Super simple. Absolutely, yes. Basically, all of our standard temp reports come with like logos that show in the top, and it's whatever logo you upload to the system. But yeah, absolutely, that's a no-brainer. Form templates, template form.
Yeah, so I think what they're referring to there is.
Oh, did I show Rev B for the
yeah,
FAI?
but yeah, it's a great, well spotted. I must admit, well spotted. But yeah, it's again based on what Chris said. It has its own report designer. HiQA does. So again, as a good example, competitor solutions, you'd struggle. You'd have to get hold of them to make the amendment. Whereas in HiQA, you can customize the documents and update it to Rev C yourself.
Yeah, this is the Rev C one. So if you're noticing something, I definitely want to know.
It might have been in your previous export. It might have been in your old
maybe it was before
PDF.
Maybe it was before I showed this or something. Yeah, but no, this should match the Rev C. But yeah, we definitely have the Rev C templates. If there's something we missed, then definitely let me know. But
but the beauty of it is you can configure it. But yeah, well spotted. Thank you.
Yeah.
Nice question. Next, does the application support Creo interfacing as such MBD? I'll let you go for that one. Quite an easy one.
Yeah, so we definitely support ballooning of 3D MBDs in extracting PMI. Creo is one that we support really, really well, actually. Although we support a huge variety of different native model types. So yeah, that's something to reach out to our team so we can do a demo and show how we capture all of that. I didn't get into that too much today, but certainly we work with both 2D drawings as well as 3D models with PMI.
And that also answers the next question as well, Chris. So you can go on to Dave Massey's one.
Extract PMI data. Yes. Can you bring next question? Can you bring assembly FAIs with some components from suppliers and other manufactured internally? Yes, absolutely.
Can you build assemblers?
Yeah, so you would be able to have, like, everything would be an individual part record inside of the system. So you'd have some parts that are internally manufactured, some parts that are externally manufactured, and you just do like a receiving inspection or something like that, or you upload the inspection report from your supplier. So you can do that today with the existing product, or you can even take it a step further with what we're doing with that next iteration I keep hinting at with Supplier Hub coming out later this year, where you can actually have the whole assembly in there, manage it, and exchange the data seamlessly back and forth with your suppliers. That's just kicking it up to a next level. But we even have customers that are doing it today with just passing Excel spreadsheets back and forth to their suppliers to collect the inspection results. There's some cool things that you can set up with, like, if you have like a OneDrive or something like that, where you have a share folder with your supplier and just have them dump their results data into that share folder, and then it automatically gets picked up by HiQA and imported automatically. So we have some customers doing that kind of stuff too.
Yeah, I'll delve a bit more into that with Chris as well, Dave. So that, again, I know where you're coming from, but yeah, I think Chris has sort of answered, but there's also something else I need to add to that, but we'll take that offline. But yeah, thanks, Dave. I will pose that with Chris separately. Thank you. Next one.
Next question: is there a link between between HiQA and Outlook? Can the application send automatically notification to the customer for the PPAP validation and completion? So, multi-tier answer to that. So first off, it doesn't need necessarily like an integration to Outlook. What we do is you would configure connection to an SMTP server. Okay, so that's kind of a yes, but I'm giving a technical yes. If you're using like Outlook, you have some custom domain for your company and everything, then you have some sort of an SMTP hosting. So you would just configure that in our software, connect to that SMTP site, and that handles all the notifications, like email notifications that are sent out for all the workflow shifts and assignments with documents and what's required. So the short answer is yes, we do that. The other thing to think about though is like how you're interfacing with your customer, and what types of notifications you're sending for PPAP validation and so on. So yeah, I would say get with our teams and kind of discuss that to understand the whole flow and what that would look like, because there's a lot more depth we could show there.
Yeah.
The next question's similar. So yes, we work with 3D models as well. Does it work with QIF? We have some QIF capabilities and tools, but it just really depends on what you're working with. QIF is kind of like an open standard. So there's a lot of things that you can do with it. I'd say get with our teams and so we can get specifics to you. Referencing MBD, thank you for the answer. Please provide information, seminar, etc. Yep.
We'll reach out, Darren, after, and yeah, we'll arrange a session and go through the technicalities. No problem.
I think we're like down to the minute at the end of the webinar.
That's amazing. So again, appreciate everybody's time this afternoon. I really hope that was useful. Thanks again to the HiQA team for your support, especially Chris that's put that together. Thanks to all the girls at Sempra for arranging this as well. But again, most importantly, thanks for everybody that's attended. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us. Give us a call at Sempra and we can arrange any separate sessions, whether it's on site or over Teams. But if nobody have any other questions, thanks for your time and hopefully speak soon.
All right, thanks, everyone. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Bye. Soon.